The city always felt like a promise to me. New York, a million different lives stacked on top of each other, each one a story of hustle and heart. My story was written in pixels and Pantones, in the clean lines of a logo, and the satisfying click of a project file being sent. I was Clara, a freelance brand strategist, and my currency was my reputation. My client list wasn't just a list. It was a decade of 6 a.m. mornings, of networking events where I choked down bad wine and smiled until my face hurt, of turning raw ideas into polished identities. It was everything. And for 5 years, Marcus had been my biggest cheerleader, or so I thought. He'd come to me as a junior designer, eyes wide with admiration. He loved my work, my process, my client relationships. I took him under my wing. I thought I was mentoring a colleague. I didn't realize I was nurturing a viper. The memory that stings the most, the one that keeps replaying in my mind like a corrupted video file, happened 3 years ago. The AIGA, the American Institute of Graphic Arts, was hosting an exclusive week-long workshop with Massimo Vignelli's lead designer. Only 20 spots for the entire country. Getting in was like winning the lottery. And I had won. My acceptance letter sat on my desk, glowing. That same afternoon, Marcus called me, his voice cracking. The small agency he was with had lost its biggest client, and he was being laid off. He was talking about giving up, about moving back to Ohio. He saw my acceptance letter. "Wow, Clara," he'd said, his voice hollow with a mix of awe and despair. "You're going to fly so high." I looked at his face, the genuine panic in his eyes. I remembered my own early days, eating ramen noodles and praying a check would clear. I made a choice. I called the AIGA. I told them I had a family emergency and couldn't attend. Then I recommended Marcus for my spot. I told them his portfolio was innovative, that he was the future. They were hesitant, but my recommendation carried weight. He got the spot. He went to the workshop. It changed his career. He never knew I gave it up for him. I let him believe he was the second choice, the next in line. It was my secret sacrifice, a testament to a friendship I thought was real, a friendship he would one day use as a weapon. The trigger, when it came, wasn't a loud explosion. It was a quiet, sickening discovery in the dead of night. 2 a.m. Insomnia had me doing a late-night audit of my website's back-end analytics. That's when I saw it. A series of downloads of my client database from an unfamiliar IP address. An IP address that, after 15 minutes of cross-referencing and a cold dread creeping up my spine, I traced back to the co-working space Marcus had just started using. It couldn't be, but it was. For the past 2 months, while he was buying me coffee and asking for advice on proposals, he had been systematically siphoning my life's work, my contacts, my projects, my notes. He wasn't just a friend, he was a corporate spy in a hoodie. For a moment, the world tilted. The air in my apartment felt thin. The framed prints on my wall, my own work, seemed to mock me. Every kind word he'd ever said, every shared laugh, replayed in my head, now tainted, sinister. Betrayal is a unique kind of acid. It doesn't just burn you, it dissolves the past, turning cherished memories into evidence of your own foolishness. I wanted to scream. I wanted to call him and hear him lie. But my fury was cold, not hot. It was crystalline. This wasn't a time for emotion. It was a time for strategy. He thought he was stealing a list. He had no idea he was starting a war. My first move had to be precise. It had to be invisible to him, but impactful for me. The next morning, I didn't call a lawyer. I didn't confront him. I drafted an email. The subject line was simple. Evolving together, a thank you from my studio. I sent it to my top 15 clients, the ones who represented 70% of my income. The email was warm, personal. It spoke of our shared successes. It made no mention of theft or competition. Instead, it announced my new Vanguard Partnership program. It offered them a 5% loyalty discount on all future work, priority scheduling, and a complimentary quarterly trends analysis report tailored to their industry. It was an offer of overwhelming value. It wasn't a reaction to a threat. It was positioned as a proactive celebration of our relationship. I hit send, my heart pounding a steady, rhythmic drum against my ribs. The first move wasn't about attacking him. It was about protecting me. It was about reinforcing my fences, reminding my most valuable assets why they chose me in the first place. I built this world. He would not take it. Not without a fight. The email went out at 9:05 a.m. The first reply came at 9:12. It was from Sarah Chen, the CEO of a boutique hotel chain I'd branded from the ground up. "Clara, this is fantastic. We were just about to discuss the Q3 campaign. Let's book a call. We're in." One by one, they came in. Affirmations. Commitments. By noon, 12 of the 15 clients had not only replied, but had locked in future work. My Vanguard partnership program had created an ironclad wall around my core business before Marcus could even send his first introductory email. His reaction was exactly what I'd anticipated from a cornered amateur. Panic. He must have started making his own calls, pitching his cut-rate services, only to find the doors already closed. He couldn't understand how I'd moved so fast. So, he escalated. His counterattack was clumsy, brutal, and deeply personal. He didn't have the finesse for corporate espionage, so he resorted to character assassination. He started a whisper campaign. He told a few smaller shared clients that I was unreliable, that I was planning to move, that I was overwhelmed and missing deadlines. When that didn't get enough traction, he went public. He used social media. He created anonymous accounts on design forums and Twitter, talking about a big-name NYC designer who was exploiting junior talent and stealing ideas. The descriptions were vague, but just specific enough to point in my direction. Then came the masterstroke of his malice, a doctored screenshot. He took a snippet from an old instant messenger chat we'd had, where I was venting about a difficult client. He expertly photoshopped the client's name out and replaced it with the name of a well-known industry blogger, twisting my words to make it look like I was mocking a powerful influencer. He posted it in a popular design-focused Facebook group with the caption, "This is the professionalism you get from some people. Be careful who you hire." That single post hit me like a physical blow. The ambiguity was the poison. People didn't know the context, but they loved the drama. The comments started pouring in. "Wow, so unprofessional. I think I know who this is. Name and shame." My carefully curated professional image, the one I had spent a decade building, was being vandalized in a public square. The phone calls and emails stopped. A lucrative project with a tech startup was suddenly put on hold pending an internal review. The silence was deafening. This was my moment of isolation, my lowest point. I sat in my apartment for 2 days, the blinds drawn. The city outside, usually a source of energy, felt like a monolithic weight of judgment. Every siren sounded like an accusation. I reread the doctored chat, the venomous comments, until the words blurred. The betrayal was no longer just professional. It was a deep, personal wound. He had taken my sacrifice, my mentorship, my friendship, and twisted it into a public shaming. I started to question everything. Was I naive? Had I been a fool to help him, to trust him? The doubt was a suffocating fog. I felt completely and utterly alone, a single flickering light in a storm that was threatening to extinguish me. The hustle that had once fueled me now felt like a curse. I was exhausted. For a fleeting, terrifying moment, I thought about just letting the darkness win, about quitting. Then, on the 3rd day of my self-imposed exile, the phone rang. The caller ID read, "Henderson Industries." My heart sank. Mr. Arthur Henderson was my oldest client, a stern but fair man in his late 60s who ran a multi-million-dollar manufacturing company. He was old school. He valued loyalty and a firm handshake. He was surely calling to fire me. I let it ring 4 times, then took a deep, shuddering breath and answered, my voice a weak imitation of its usual confidence. "Clara speaking." "Clara." His voice was a gravelly baritone, no preamble. I just received a very interesting proposal from a young man named Marcus Thorne. He tells me he's your former protégé and that you're scaling back your operations. He's offering to redesign our entire corporate identity for 20% less than what you quoted for the annual refresh. I closed my eyes. Mr. Henderson. Don't say a word, he cut in, his tone sharp. I've been in business for 47 years. I can smell a rat through a phone line. I looked at this boy's portfolio. It's good, but it looks exactly like the work you were doing 3 years ago. Then I called a friend over at the AGA, a person on the board. I asked her about you. She told me a story about how you gave up a spot at a prestigious workshop a few years back, anonymously, and how the spot went to the runner-up, a young man from Ohio, Marcus Thorne. The air left my lungs. He knew. Talent is common, Clara, Mr. Henderson continued, his voice softening slightly. What you have is integrity. That is rare. This boy is not just trying to steal your business. He is trying to steal your name. Do not let him. It wasn't just a vote of confidence. It was validation. It was a lifeline. He saw the truth without me having to say a word. He saw my character, not the caricature Marcus was painting. His words cut through the fog of my doubt, a lighthouse beam in the storm. I wasn't alone. That conversation was the pivot. My fear transmuted back into cold, hard resolve. 2 days later, a mutual acquaintance, another designer named Kevin, called me. His voice was laced with uncomfortable sympathy. Hey, Clara, I spoke with Marcus. He's really torn up about all this. He says it's a huge misunderstanding. He wants to meet, to talk it out. He's even willing to, transition some of the clients he's spoken with back to you. The offer was as insulting as the theft itself. He thought he could break into my house, steal my possessions, and then offer to give back a toaster to make things right. I leaned back in my chair, the strength from Mr. Henderson's call still resonating within me. The view of the city from my window no longer seemed menacing. It looked like a kingdom waiting to be reclaimed. Kevin, I said, my voice calm and measured, devoid of the tremor it had held just days before. Thank you for being the messenger, but there is nothing to negotiate. This was never about a misunderstanding. It was a calculated act of theft and defamation. But he says, I know what he says, I interrupted, my tone hardening. But what he did was download my entire client and project database. What he did was attempt to systematically dismantle my business by lying to my clients. What he did was fabricate conversations to publicly destroy my reputation. I paused, letting the weight of the words sink in. This is no longer a personal dispute that can be solved over coffee. He made a series of professional decisions, and now he must face the professional consequences. Justice has a process, Kevin, and it's already in motion. Please tell him that for me. I ended the call. The time for negotiation was over. The time for defense was over. The era of offense was about to begin. Marcus had mistaken my kindness for weakness. He was about to learn that the same hand that can build a brand can also orchestrate its complete and total demolition. The plan for the climax took 3 weeks to execute. It required precision, patience, and a touch of theater. I rebranded my entire freelance operation into a boutique agency, Clarity Design Group. I built a stunning new website and portfolio. Then I planned an official launch party. Not just any party, but an exclusive industry event held in a chic gallery space in Chelsea. The invitations were elegant, printed on heavy cardstock, and sent to every influential creative director, brand manager, and CEO in my network. I sent one to Mr. Henderson, of course, and with his permission, listed him on the invitation as a guest speaker. And, most importantly, I sent an invitation to Marcus. I knew his ego wouldn't let him decline a chance to be seen at such an event. The night of the party was electric. The gallery was buzzing, the white walls adorned with my best work. People were sipping champagne, networking, admiring the displays. The air hummed with potential. I moved through the crowd, a gracious host, every nerve-ending tingling with anticipation. I saw Marcus arrive. He was trying to look casual, but a fine sheen of sweat coated his brow. He was networking aggressively, shaking hands, trying to solidify the foothold he thought he'd stolen. At 8:30 p.m., I dimmed the lights. Mr. Henderson took the small stage. He was a commanding presence. He spoke about his long-standing relationship with me, about the value of trust and integrity in business. In an industry full of echoes, he said, his voice booming slightly. Clara is a voice, clear, honest, and with unwavering integrity. He looked directly at me and nodded. The applause was warm and genuine. Then, it was my turn. I stepped up to the microphone, my heart a steady, powerful engine. Thank you all for being here, I began, my voice clear and strong. Tonight is about the future, about building stronger, more transparent, and more ethical brands. And in the spirit of that transparency, I want to share a short case study with you. A project we at Clarity Design Group have been developing. It's about the vital importance of brand security and the dangers of unethical client acquisition in our digital age. I clicked a remote. The massive screen behind me, which had been displaying my new logo, flickered to life. The title on the screen read, Anatomy of a Betrayal, a case study in professional sabotage. A collective inhale swept through the room. I never said his name. I didn't have to. Point by point, slide by slide, I laid it all out, using cool, corporate, anonymized language. Phase 1, the infiltration, gaining trust through mentorship to access proprietary data. Phase 2, the data heist, the systematic download of a competitor's entire client database. I even showed a blurred, redacted screenshot of the server logs tracing the downloads to a specific co-working space IP address. Phase 3, the smear campaign. The use of doctored communications and anonymous social media accounts to defame a competitor and create a false market opportunity. The final slide showed the faked screenshot he had created, next to the original unedited version, which I had saved. The difference was glaring, undeniable. I watched him from the stage. Marcus had gone absolutely white. He looked like a man who had just watched his own execution. The whispers started instantly, a low murmur rippling through the 200 industry professionals in the room. People who knew us both. People who had seen the social media posts. People he had tried to pitch. The pieces clicked into place for them, the picture becoming horrifyingly clear. I saw the creative director of the tech startup that had put my project on hold stare at Marcus, her expression one of pure disgust. Another designer, someone Marcus had been laughing with just minutes before, took a slow, deliberate step away from him. He was no longer a colleague. He was a pariah, an island in a sea of silent judgment. He turned, his movements stiff, and practically fled the gallery, the weight of 100 pairs of eyes on his back. Poetic justice. It wasn't loud or violent. It was quiet, elegant, and utterly devastating. The truth, delivered with the precision of a surgeon's scalpel. In the aftermath, my new reality began to bloom. The montage of my new life played out not on a screen, but in the heart of the city I had reclaimed. The first scene, me, standing in a bright, airy new office space, 2 floors higher than my old one, laughing as I handed a welcome packet to the first 2 junior designers I had ever hired. Their faces were full of the same ambition I once had, but this time, I would nurture it with wisdom, not blind trust. The second scene, me, on a video call a month later, the Manhattan skyline brilliant behind me. On the screen was the board of directors for a major European luxury brand. Mr. Henderson had made the introduction. I was calm, confident, as I walked them through my pitch. At the end of the call, their chairman smiled. "Welcome aboard, Miss Clara. We are thrilled to be working with the Clarity Design Group." It was a contract larger than any 2 of my old ones combined. The third scene, A quiet dinner at a classic Italian restaurant in the West Village. Across the table sat Mr. Henderson. There was no talk of business. We talked about his grandchildren, about my recent trip to the Museum of Modern Art. He had become more than a client. He was a mentor, a friend, a genuine one. "You did good, kid," he said, raising his glass of Chianti. "You didn't just win. You set a new standard." 6 months after the launch party, an email landed in my inbox. The sender was Marcus Thorne. The subject line was a single pathetic word: "Sorry." I opened it against my better judgment. It was a long, rambling mess of self-pity, excuses, and half-hearted apologies that quickly devolved into blaming me for overreacting and ruining his life. I read the first 2 sentences, my face an unreadable mask. Then, without a flicker of emotion, I dragged the message into the trash icon on my desktop and then clicked empty trash. I took a sip of my morning coffee, the steam warming my face as I looked out at the sprawling, beautiful, chaotic city. It was my city again. Betrayal is a fire that threatens to burn your world to the ground. But if you survive it, you learn to rebuild with stronger materials. You learn that your dignity is not a commodity to be negotiated. It is the foundation upon which you build your life, your career, your very sense of self. Protecting it isn't an act of vengeance, it's an act of survival. So build your walls high, not to keep people out, but to ensure that only those worthy of your trust are ever allowed inside. Fight for your name, for your work, for your worth. Because in the end, the only person who can truly define your value is you. And that is a truth worth defending.